There were rumors already that the Seahawks could potentially put him out there as trade bait.
Turned 66 catches for 992 yards and 5 touchdowns. For the Seahawks, wide receiver DK Metcalf has requested a trade out of Seattle.
This is shaping up to be one of the craziest off seasons in recent memory, and believe me, we've had a lot of crazy NFL off seasons. Nothing officially moved yet, except for Deebo Samuel obviously getting traded to the Commanders. And although we don't really have that much depth in the quarterback market, there seems to be a significant amount of depth in terms of wide receivers. So before we get to the content, we officially dropped our first baseball video on Uni Diamond Talk. It's called The Death of the Starting Pitcher. I'm going to leave a link to it in the end screen, and we're giving away 10 copies of MLB The Show 25 to a subscriber that turns on their notifications on that channel. And we're going to start announcing giveaway winners from the second video and on. Now that we get all that out of the way, today's video is sponsored by PrizePicks. We've been having a dominant run making easy money on our NBA props that I give away on my Instagram at @TheFlightMike and on my Patreon at Mikerophone. Make sure you use my promo code Mikerophone to get $50 when you make a play of $5 or more, or just click in the link in the description down below. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? There's no question about it. DK Metcalf is one of the most physically imposing wide receivers we've ever seen, probably since the days of Calvin Johnson. No, I'm not saying he's Calvin Johnson, but in terms of the amount of muscle this man has on his body and how physically imposing he is versus opposing defensive backs, he's definitely one of the top wide receivers in the NFL. He's made second team All-Pro once and has 2 Pro Bowls, and is currently just 27 years old, coming off of another season where he almost broke 1,000 receiving yards despite missing 6 games. The thing is, the Seattle Seahawks are in a very strange situation. This is a team that has $32.5 million of cap space, despite not really owing Geno Smith that much money. And the individual with the second highest cap number on the team is DK Metcalf. You see, the Seattle Seahawks knew that there was a possibility that they'd move on from DK Metcalf 2 years ago when they decided to select Jackson Smith-Njigba in the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft. And although Jackson Smith-Njigba was just okay in his rookie season, once the Seattle Seahawks let go of Shane Waldron, Jackson Smith-Njigba really came into his own, having a breakout in his second season in the NFL with 100 receptions, over 1,100 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns. Jackson Smith-Njigba is still on a rookie scale contract, and he will be on a rookie scale contract for the next 3 years, whereas DK Metcalf is up for a contract extension as soon as this year. So there's a lot of turnover for the Seattle Seahawks in regards to their wide receiver department, as the Seahawks announced earlier that they parted ways with franchise icon Tyler Lockett after 10 memorable seasons in Seattle. I can't believe it's already been 10 seasons. Tyler Lockett made his name originally as an incredible kick returner for the Seattle Seahawks, but one thing I really respected Lockett for in the latter part of his career was the fact that he would go down almost immediately after making a reception. You could find really cool montages of this, of him just doing everything he possibly can to just make the reception and avoid getting tackled. It's like he's holding the X button every single time you throw to him in Madden to make that safe possession catch and not get any additional yards. He's currently 32 years old, and when healthy, he's been a very solid wide receiver. His most recent 1,000 plus yard receiving season was in the 2022 season. So I think there's plenty of juice left in the tank for Tyler Lockett. Lockett posted onto social media saying, "I really enjoyed being in Seattle. I met so many great people and captured so many great memories. The 12s really make this place meaningful. Although my time on the Seahawks may have run its course, I'm thankful for everything. God gets all the glory forever." And the craziest part about this is almost immediately after we found out that DK Metcalf was also going to leave the Seattle Seahawks. So a few days ago, this was something that I stored in my archives because I didn't feel confident enough in making a video on this because I just didn't trust the sources. It was one of those instances where what the sources were saying made a lot of sense, but it was disputed and I didn't want to bring you guys false information. So I just decided to keep it in the archives until now when we actually got a legitimate tweet to back it up. So I originally heard this from Corbin Smith. About a week ago, he tweeted out that he is hearing through multiple sources that the Seahawks have spoken with a number of teams about DK Metcalf's availability this week in Indy. As John Schneider has pointed out before, simply talking to another team doesn't mean a trade is imminent, but it's worth keeping an eye on. And that's exactly what I did. I just kept my eye on it at this point. Now, Smith would provide his rationale, saying, yeah, I heard Mike McDonald and John Schneider's comments on DK Metcalf this week. I was there. I was also there when Pete Carroll and John Schneider talked about Russell Wilson before the trade happened. Not saying that DK is getting moved, but talks beyond a simple hello, no, he's not available have happened. And that's something I always try to say on this YouTube channel. I mean, no general manager is going to come out and straight up say,
hey, we're gonna trade one of our players.
They never come out and say that. It's always lurking behind the shadows. It's up to us to deduce whether or not they're actually looking to trade him. They'll always deny that they're trying to trade him, primarily because it's awkward if you say you're going to try to trade a player and you don't end up trading him. So in this case, he's assuming that the Packers are the top team to potentially make a trade for DK Metcalf. And he says that in order for a DK Metcalf trade to happen, the deal would have to be structured to receive the number 23 overall pick and either Romeo Doubs or Dontavian Wicks in exchange for receiver in one of their early day 3 selections, which makes a lot of sense. DK Metcalf has had multiple 1,000-yard receiving seasons. I mean, he is one of the most imposing wide receivers in the NFL, and he's just entering his prime. Now, Peter Bukowski actually backpacks on this, saying, my understanding of this is that the Packers have not put their first on the table, but was told they believe they can get the deal done at a price they're comfortable with. Bukowski would also say that he can confirm Corbin's reporting here. League source told me that Green Bay has been working on this and has an offer they think can land DK Metcalf. Then the hope is trading Jair Alexander to backfill some of the lost draft capital if they can get it. Jair Alexander and the Green Bay Packers are expected to part ways this offseason, so that checks out on that. But the Packers aren't expected to do a straight up swap of Jair Alexander for DK Metcalf. Very rarely do you see trades like that go down. Corbin then says, I'm sticking with what I've reported. I trust the sources I've spoken with. Teams are going to do what they can to cover themselves this time of year. And Bukowski backpacks on that as well, saying the second part is crucial. This was not supposed to get out. It wasn't leaked by the team. To be honest, you don't have to be a genius to figure out that this is something that they were entertaining, because the Seattle Seahawks are entering a rebuild. They're trying to save cap space. They already have Jackson Smith-Njigba, so DK Metcalf is slightly expendable. Bukowski talks about why DK Metcalf would be perfect on the Packers. Not only do you replace Christian Watson's vertical ability, you improve it. Then you have Dontavian Wicks as your separator underneath guy and Jaden Reed in the slot. It's ideal. I have the Green Bay Packers as a contender to make a huge play for a number 1 wide receiver, primarily because the biggest issue that Jordan Love has had is interceptions. And when do you typically throw a lot of interceptions? When you don't typically have a knack for throwing a lot of interceptions, it's when you have inconsistency at the wide receiver position. If you take a look at CJ Stroud's sophomore season and you compare it to his rookie season, you'd see that he only threw 5 interceptions in his rookie season in comparison to 12 interceptions in his sophomore season. The difference between these 2 seasons was the fact that Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell were all in and out of the Houston Texans offense, with Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs eventually being lost for the remainder of the season. I mean, Tank Dell is going to be out for the entire 2025 season as well. I don't know why he'd wait this long to get ACL surgery, but I really wish the man a speedy recovery because he was awesome when he was on the field. But in the case of Jordan Love slightly regressed this past season, going for significantly less passing yards and 7 less pass TDs. I guess you can make an argument that the reason for this was the fact that 1, the Packers got Josh Jacobs, and 2, he didn't play 2 games during the regular season, but he wasn't nearly as sharp as he was in his first full season under center. And I don't really blame him because, again, Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson are consistently in and out of games, dealing with injuries, and there's no consistency at the wide receiver position. Now, in this particular case, Hollywood Brown got traded for a first-round pick. Amari Cooper got traded for a first-round pick. It's not surprising that the Seahawks would ask for a first-round pick or that the Packers would be willing to give it. Now, again, these are all sources that, respectfully, I'm hearing about for the very first time. This is the reason why they were in my archives originally. There's some cute stuff here. I mean, they also mentioned that the Chiefs and the Packers would be interested in this as well. I don't necessarily know how the Kansas City Chiefs would make such a trade. I mean, they're doing their absolute best to shed salary currently. They just franchise tagged Trey Smith. Patrick Mahomes' cap number balloons all the way up to 66.258. I don't know if they want to restructure that in order to make this happen. It's always a cute rumor to say that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to go get a superstar wide receiver to pair with Patrick Mahomes. It's just not possible possible with his cap number where it is, especially when you take a look at how much Chris Jones is earning, the franchise tag of Trey Smith, and the amount Travis Kelce and Creed Humphrey are making. It's just not reasonable to expect this. And at that point, I decided that this wasn't really news. This is just individuals that I'm sure are great individuals on X trying to start rumors. So again, I just put it in my archives until we got word from Tom Pelissero that two-time Pro Bowl wide receiver DK Metcalf has requested a trade, and the Seattle Seahawks have agreed to explore options, sources tell me in Rap Sheet. Days before free agency, the 27-year-old Metcalf immediately becomes the top receiver available. There's no question about it that DK Metcalf is the top wide receiver you could acquire. Rap Sheet mentions that there's likely to be significant interest in the Seattle star, and both sides will dig into it, a big-time wide receiver who may be on the move. There are so many fun possibilities for DK Metcalf. I mean, when you just take a look at the top 4 teams in the NFL, the New England Patriots have $127.4 million in cap space. They have a young up-and-coming QB. They're in the midst of a culture change this offseason, and the top free agents that I would originally think they would be interested in pursuing are no longer available. T. Higgins got franchise tagged. I mean, presumably to do a tag and trade, because honestly, I don't think it's intelligent to pay Jamar Chase the most money out of all wide receivers in the NFL and then tag T. Higgins for another year. Trey Smith got franchise tagged by the Kansas City Chiefs, so there goes the Patriots' opportunity to boost their offensive line through free agency. So from then on, like, your best wide receiver options are Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, Devontae Adams, and when you have this much cap space, you're definitely going to feel the urge to go on a shopping spree, especially when you're one of the worst teams in the NFL. Patriots need a wide receiver. They could afford to pay DK Metcalf big money. It would not shock me if they ponied up a future first-round pick or maybe a second-round pick, because they have such a high first-round pick this year, in return for DK Metcalf. Another possibility is probably the cutest possibility out of any team in this list, and that'd be the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders desperately need a wide receiver one. DK Metcalf gets to go to Vegas, a place where he'd save a boatload of money on taxes. He'd reunite with his former head coach Pete Carroll, and then the Russell Wilson to the Raiders rumors are going to be running rampant. You can make an argument that maybe DK goes to the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, they have a wide receiver on a rookie scale contract in Marvin Harrison Jr. So could you imagine an offense with Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr. in his second year in the NFL, and DK Metcalf? But of course, if you're a wide receiver in the NFL, I am always going to say that you are rumored to go to this team. It's only a matter of time before this team takes a flyer on a wide receiver in the league, and that is the Los Angeles Chargers. They have $65.3 million in cap space. They're rumored to be looking to move on from Joey Bosa, whose cap number is $36.4 million, so they could potentially free up even more cap space if they do this. They're in desperate need for a wide receiver one. DK Metcalf could be that wide receiver one in a run-friendly offense, which is what DK Metcalf has been dealing with throughout his entire career, to be Justin Herbert's top wide receiver. At the end of the day, I do expect DK Metcalf to get traded. It was something we speculated on a few weeks ago in our A Huge NFL Trade is Coming video, primarily because it just made too much sense salary cap wise for it not to happen. The fact that the Seattle Seahawks are entering a full-scale rebuild, and that the draft pick would get them underneath the salary cap, where they could potentially take a flyer on one of the wide receivers in this year's NFL draft, or just move forward with Jackson Smith-Njigba as their wide receiver one for the future, which I think he's capable of doing. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about DK Metcalf's trade demand? Apart from that, our first baseball channel is live. If you want to support us on that channel, I'm going to leave a link to it in the end screen, and I'll meet you guys there. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.